Great to see you. It is Thursday, right? Thursday, October 7th, and I'm continuing to prep for my new course right there, abundantprofessional.com/new skills for professional work. And what's been so interesting about this process is just kind of, I have a lot of great colleagues who are more than happy to give me feedback, and I'm getting a lot of it, and it's awesome. Because no matter how much you've taught, and I've taught a lot, I've created dozens of courses over my career. I was a tenured professor and created a whole graduate program. No matter what, when you, no matter when you decide to do something new, you have to work through it and you have to shape it. You have an idea and that sounds exciting to your brain and you start telling people about it, but until you start actually putting the pieces in place, you really won't know how to do it. And that's why I'm going through this and shaping the course with you guys. The feedback's super helpful. As people sign up, they have a question like, what topics do you want to make sure I cover, or what particular situation do you have that you want me to address in the course? And that's what's going to be fun about this course, is that it is the people who are in it will get almost direct feedback on applying the ideas and to their work. Not just from me sharing concepts, but in the course we will work on their particular situation. So what I wanted to do, this is a part of a series. I'm just going live regularly, and the recordings will be up on the different social platforms to talk about some of the ideas behind the course. And today I wanted to go on, hopefully it won't be 30 minutes, and talk about a particular topic. And what I want to show you actually is, as I'm going through this, I'm playing with ideas and like, what should I talk about on this series of lives? I'm getting, trying to design diagrams that are illustrating the principles that I'm going over in the class, or the ideas that I'm going in the class. But I did just say principles, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. There's this recurring question I get with people who are into any of this notion of developing professional skills and methods to do their work better, is there's an overwhelming number of methods. And so today I want to talk about why, if you know principles, you are much more able to learn methods and moreover apply them, plus invent your own methods and customize them to your particular situation. And for me, that's one of the most exciting things. I mean, it's why I created courses and actual methods for the field, is because I understood the principles at work, but there were different situations where you had to apply those principles, and those principles embodied and applied to a particular situation usually gives you a method. So what am I really talking about? Well, one thing I use in some of the talks I do is, I want to go back to the main. I want to go back to the main view. I'm also practicing my production skills. Earlier this year, I did 6 months of live streams 2 times a week, and it was awesome. And I got very good at switching and remembering everything, but you have to get into it. You have to, get back on the bike and learn how to ride. And I'm doing fairly simple things, but still, like yesterday and during the live, I left the music on. Hopefully there's no music playing right now. No, I didn't turn it on. So, okay. So, I show this book to folks, and say, look at this book on design methods. It's the second edition. And how many methods are in here? I don't know what it says. Maybe there's 30. Here we go. The book provides 35 new methods that have been developed to assist designers and planners to become more sensitive to user needs. Okay? So 35 in this book. But what's more interesting to me is that this book was written originally, I think, was originally written in, hang on, what would you guess? 1970. So design methods in human-centered design has been being developed for, well, 1970. So that's 30 years to 2020, for half a century. And what's awesome about that is people are still discovering it, right? And so this was one of my textbooks from studying in 1988, 89, or 1989, 90 in graduate school, and hundreds of other methods. And so people really get overwhelmed by the methods, and I've never been overwhelmed by the methods. I think it's because I care more about principles than specific methods. And that relates to one other topic that I want to bring up, and that is people are obsessed with the notion of a process. What process are we going to follow? And I don't think design thinking, I don't think human-centered design, I don't think most methods or methodologies, agile, lean, none of those are a process. They all operate on fundamental principles that then you apply over time because you're doing a project. And again, this obsession with process has a lot to do with people wanting repeatable processes in innovation. What's a repeatable process? Well, that's an oxymoron. It's an oxymoron because if you're innovating, you're doing something new. And so if you think you can come up with a repeatable process that gets you something new every time, you would be fabulously wealthy, living on an island, doing whatever you wanted to. Because repeatable processes only exist for things that have been figured out already. And I do not believe that you can follow a very strict process and innovate. And people get themselves into a lot of trouble because of that. Well, what's the answer? Well, the answer is principles. Applying principles to your project, looking at the situation, the context, the nature of the problem or challenge or opportunity you're pursuing, and thinking about what principles may be at work. So I brought up a definition of principles. So let me just reference that real quick. Come over here. So a principle, and I'm just seeing if do I have any viewers? I do not have any viewers, which is fine. Let me just check Restream real quick. Sorry. Again, this is pre-course. I am online in 4 different places. That's awesome. So again, I'm fabulously happy if nobody shows up. That's fine. But if you do show up, please shoot me a comment. Say hi as always. I would love to see you. Okay, so I got out of there. What is a principle? And then I'll tell you why I'm bringing this to your attention today in my series going to the course. So a principle is a fundamental truth or proposition. I like proposition. I don't like fundamental truth is kind of a little strong for what I'm talking about, but a fundamental proposition that serves as the foundation for a system of belief or behavior. And so what I believe is in design thinking, human-centered design, and just working more creatively in business, it's a series of principles, and these new skills are all based on principles that provide the foundation for your behavior in solving problems. And so what's an example principle? And I haven't written these up, but I do think a library or a glossary or a list of principles we could write those, and they would be very helpful to people if they first took them as being relatively true or in principle correct, and then asked, what does that mean? What behavior, action, belief should I have in this particular situation of problem solving if that's true? So what's an example principle? I'm going to make some up on the fly here. So one principle is that human behavior is unpredictable. Human behavior is unpredictable. What does that mean in this particular situation? Well, it means that if I'm designing a new service and I say, we're going to put this there, then we're going to have the people do this, and then we're going to have the people do that. And I'm a designer or a product manager or a service design manager. Do I get to build that before testing it? Will people do what I think they will do? The answer is no, because of the principle. It's impossible to predict human behavior. It's kind of impossible to predict human opinion. And I guess I'll take it there because the other thing that we always did, and a great story, is we were working on a medical device and I was doing the user research for it, a medical device that held batteries and had a little instrument that connected to something inside the body to keep somebody's heart beating properly until their heart transplant was available. So they were on the list for a heart transplant. They would need to install this thing inside, that's keeping the heart going, but they needed 16 pounds of batteries on the outside. And we were we're trying to design this thing, and I'm doing the user research. We had 5 different prototypes. One was more vest-like, one was a sling, one was a belt kind of clasp with the 2 batteries like in holsters. And we went to do the user testing and the user research on it. And we had some people wear it for a week who were post their heart surgery. So all these people had heart surgery, so they were already fine. But they had the experience of waiting for the heart plus wearing devices while they waited. And the one we all predicted was the best design. We thought it was great. The user testing showed us absolutely it was not. And why is that? Why is it that you can't predict human behavior or preference? It's because you're unfamiliar with those other people's experience, their context, where they live and work. You're unfamiliar with their experience that they went through in the heart surgery, so they started bringing up all sorts of things about what the experience was like prior to it. So the lived experience of other people is inaccessible to you unless you go and work with them to understand that and to view it. And so this principle of human behavior is impossible to predict means all sorts of things. It means you can assume people are using your product or service or having experiences with your product or service that you wouldn't expect, that would be surprising to you. Well, that means that, what does that mean? Well, that means that shouldn't we take at least a week, at least one visit to spend some time seeing how people are interacting with our product or service or what their experience is like? Another example was this engineer had a head of engineering at a company, had a brilliant idea because he bought into this principle that you don't understand what's really going on with human behavior or what's going on in your products or services. And so he said, I have a feeling that if we go and listen and watch what's happening in our tech support call center, we would learn a lot about the design of our machine, our design of our product. And so he said, I asked a couple different firms to do that, and they said, no, you wouldn't get any good information there. You got to go out and do it with, consumers of your machine. And I tended to differ. Well, the users of their machine were on the other side. So I decided, yes, let's do that project. And we learned a ton. We learned a ton of how, because the technical people had the machine right there with them, as people would call in and say, I'm having a hard time with this. And so they would use the machine as reference to describe how to go flip a lever or check something out to see if it was installed properly or set up properly, et cetera. We got so much insight from how the machine should be designed so these support calls could be better run, so customers didn't run into the problem in the first place and they could see what was happening in the machine. Just a lot of insight by going and watching and looking at human behavior. We know that's valuable because of the fundamental principle that you can't predict human behavior. You can't predict what people are actually doing. So that's why I'm so excited about principles. And I think in each one of these areas that we're working in the course, we'll be talking about the principles more so than the particular method. So if you're interested in that, I have, a lot of people who are considering this course are like, I'm an experienced professional. I got all the basic training and the basic methods. Why might this course be valuable? Well, I think if you haven't thought a lot about principles and how they empower you both to apply methods better, to communicate with others in your organization in more powerful ways, you're missing out on a level of experience and benefit that you could be using to make more progress in your organization, to both bring other people along, to get permission to do things, and to build the prominence of these practices in your organization. Okay, I read the definition. So a principle is a fundamental truth or proposition, a fundamental proposition that serves as the foundation for a system of beliefs. And I think it was interesting just to understand that a little bit more, because even that, it feels a little abstract. I contrast that with a theory. So what's the difference? Why aren't these things theories? Well, a theory is supposedly something that explains why that principle holds, how it holds. And then in the area of physics, which we're not in the area of physics, but in the area of physics, a law just states how things are. And who knows, maybe that you cannot predict human behavior. We should make that a fundamental law of design thinking or human-centered design. And I will do more work on that to see whether we can start writing the laws of design thinking. But the laws are how things are once you've figured out. So F equals ma, force equals mass times acceleration. It just is a law of the universe. It is how things behave. So that's what a law is. A principle is more of a fundamental proposition that serves as a foundation for a system of beliefs or behavior. And you can tell as I talk through just that one of you can't predict human behavior, that it feels much more like a principle, like it's a system of beliefs that I have and what I do about it, how I go out and watch people or interview them, see what they really do in order to inform, provide insight, discover fundamentally new things about what people are doing. Okay, live stream check. I'm a little concerned. It's showing there's absolutely nobody viewing, which is funny and awesome and all that. At one level I don't care, but it makes me believe that maybe my social networks aren't really live. So if I go over to Restream, so this is a technical timeout from my speaking about if I go over here, I have Restream. And if I view the event on YouTube, we can see if anybody's showed up. Now, I didn't send out, what's interesting about this is I did send out an email late yesterday, like 5 minutes or 10 minutes before the session that some people didn't get until 10 minutes into the session. Okay, so I'm coming through live and clear on YouTube, which is great because that means this will be available to you guys. And let me just go check Facebook real quick. And I'm sure it's like, everybody's like, I saw Chris already. It was novel yesterday. We said hi, and I'm not going any more to his lives. Okay, So I'm fine there. Things are going good. Kind of come back to my production. There we go. So principles. There's another principle in design that's another good example for you of how these work. And I want you to start thinking about what principles do you know about? What principles do you operate by in your practice? Could you write some of them down? Write them down, send them to me. If you came here live, you could put a couple trial ones in the chat. However, think about what principles drive how you approach your work. So this other one I wanted to say, actually it might be a law. Now I have to look it up. It's called Fitz Law, actually. Hang on. Let's see what we got here. Does anybody know what Fitz Law is? Yeah, it's a law. So I'm, just kind of geeking out. The academic in me is geeking out on the difference between laws and principles. Okay, and so Fitz Law is used in human-computer interaction, as we used to call it, interaction design, etc. Let me see what Fitz Law says, but I think it's something that I think about it every time it happens to me, and it will happen to you because Fitz Law. Okay, so it's a little quirky, but I'm going to tell you what it means in practical terms. I think this scientific law predicts that the time required to rapidly move to a target area is a function of the ratio between the distance to the target and the width of the target. Okay, that's a little geeky, but, oh wait, here I can, laptop with pip, bring you over here. Now you can actually see it. I could even maybe zoom in on it like this for you. Okay. What does this mean from a practical sense? And why is it used in interaction design? From a practical sense, it's basically talking about how to make the size of things the proper size, so that when people go to press a button or interact with something on a screen or a machine, the button has to be big enough given its distance from the person. So I have a little control panel here, and these buttons are plenty big. I'm not complaining about that, but do you know how many buttons there are here or in your computer interface where you go to click them and you click the wrong one, or you need to make more time? So in Google Mail, what I often do is I end up archiving the email because the button for archive is right next to the button for save or something, or highlight or star. So what does that mean? It means when I go too fast, I accidentally press the archive button, the email goes away, and it's something that I wanted to save and actually highlight. And so it's doing the exact opposite of what I want to do because I do it quickly, but Fitz Law says the size of that button governs the speed with which I can acquire that target and successfully press it. So as you can see, not paying attention to Fitz Law when you're designing interfaces ends up meaning that people have worse experiences with the interface because they have to go back, slow down, pay attention on which target it is, which button it is, and press it. So that, I don't know if that resonates with you, but it happens to me every day. And as I get older, what am I, 36 right now? Your eyesight starts to go, how you pay attention, your glasses have progression. All of that gets harder, and Fitz Law adjusts a little bit, or the actual parameters adjust a little bit. So anyway, principles are very powerful. I can apply that in lots of different situations, right? This notion of size of something and somebody putting attention towards it and wanting to interact with it. There's probably corollaries of Fitz Law that are more about social interaction and such. Anyway, it's a principle that becomes very clear and then guides design, behavior, etc. Going back to the the notion of you can't predict human behavior, or that you should talk to users to learn things that you didn't know about them. So that's the principle. What else comes out of principles? So what also comes out of principles is that you can develop a whole methodology on top of it. And so this is it says it's a national bestseller. I'd be surprised, but it's a counterintuitive method to discover exactly what your customers want to buy, create a mass of raving fans, and take any business to the next level. So of course that's marketing speak, but the ask method, so now we're talking about a method, is based on the principle that you should ask or interview your customers about, there's all sorts of different strategies, each one of them, who, what, and why, strange questions, strange answers. You can see discovery, the ask methodology, how to read the ask method. So the process, here we go. Prepare, persuade, segment, prescribe, profit, pivot. Great, bunch of, a new 7 Ps. Okay, but what is interesting here? What's interesting here is that they've taken a principle and said, this is one of the most fundamentally important principles to figuring out who your customers are, or who your customers could be for a new business. And you need to ask them a series of questions that help you understand what they would really like to know about. And so, obviously you can see me going live and asking for comments on my posts and live streams, because I do want to know what aspects of the course would be valuable to you. So it's built into my process. Another principle that we're going to cover in the course is that there is no such thing as a brilliant idea, really, because all ideas eventually have to interact with the world, and you have to put ideas together and change them and change the manifestation of that idea and shape it for success. So I had my first iteration of what the course would be, and I started talking to people, and they started asking questions, and I started asking questions to them. And so the course is starting to take shape. I wouldn't say very differently, but very differently than I originally imagined, because I'm starting to relate to what people want. So the principle that solutions are shaped, and then you ask, well, what solution am I dealing with in this project? For me, it's offering this cohort-based course with a small cohort to come together and give them an awesome experience over 5 weeks, and proposing, the schedule, the amount of time, getting lots of feedback on that. And I do that behavior because I believe in the principle that you have to shape solutions. You can't just design them a priori and be right? So it's testing. And in fact, this first cohort, the beta cohort, if you will teach me a lot about running it and what the dynamic is week to week. And so that the next time I make it available to people, I'll be that much better at it, and it'll be that much more relevant or helpful to the current cohort. Now, if you're worried about waiting until it gets better, which some people may be, just realize that when you take the first cohort, you will have access to the next cohort for free. So you will be comped into the next cohort, which will be more expensive, more than likely. It certainly won't be less expensive because it will be better. It will have more content in it. I'll have more people in it to interact with. So yeah. Okay. So principles. I want you to think about the principles that you follow in your work. Write a few down. I just did a couple there. Let me think if I can think of one more principle, maybe from the kind of the framing area. Maybe I would say in framing, what would a principle be? What drives this whole notion of that you have to frame things? The principle is a project solution cannot be seen or imagined because of with just a problem statement. a project solution cannot be imagined, understood, or solved by just having the project statement. And so what does that guide me to do? First of all, it guides me that when I have a project statement, I realize that that project statement is simply a direction to start the inquiry process of the project research, to inform myself of what's really going on. And ultimately, that from that project research, we're going to frame a target for putting our creative energy against, our ideas, our solution, architecting solutions, testing those, prototyping, et cetera. So that would be another principle. I'm liking this idea. Let's make sure we capture these, shall we? A project's solution or ideas for it cannot be correct if they are being generated from simply hearing a project statement. We'll work on that, right? I think there's something powerful there. Okay, so I indeed have gone for 30 minutes. It's way too much, but it's good practice for me. And hopefully somewhere in here, I've said something of value or interest that's piqued your own curiosity, that has helped you think about the role of principles, new methods, your own professional practice of applying those methods or articulating what they're about to your colleagues so you can get more support and collaboration. And I want to invite you again to check out my course landing page. You can just go to abundantprofessional.com, and there's a link at the top for new skills for professional work, or you can type it out with dashes in between, and you will see the landing page. Check out the course. Sign up on that page if you want, just for updates, or you click that register button and you join the cohort and you get more of this. My next live will either be, I think it'll be how I'm going to run each session. We have an hour and a half, 90 minutes for each session. I started planning out very specifically what we're doing in each session, and I quickly realized that that time is going to go very quickly. So it will be very easy to overstuff the burrito. It will be very important to get the level of what we're trying to do correct, the dynamic of the activities, and how we're going to use it to help you make progress on what you're trying to make progress on your professional skills and what you're trying to do in your organization. So join me tomorrow when I'll talk about how the current plan for running each session, which I'm sure I'll get lots of feedback on, which is awesome. Feedback is a gift. That's also a principle. Feedback is a gift, so always welcome it. Look at it, never comment on it when you first open it. And so I'm sure I'll get feedback tomorrow on how I'm running the 90 minutes, how we're going to split up that time. And there'll be a little bit of a dynamic in there, but it's pretty amazing how fast an hour and a half will go. So I look forward to sharing those ideas with you and to your feedback, and I will catch you later. Ciao.